Hey, what's going on? Matt O'Leary here, back with another video, and today we're going to be talking about two signings the New York Jets made. But before we get started, I just wanted to mention that you can follow me on social media at Matt O'Leary NY, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and also make sure to get those voicemails in. New podcast every Monday where we break down all things New York Jets. So call in, leave me a voicemail, I'll answer it on the podcast. So we'll start with the Robbie Anderson replacement, which is Breshad Perriman, who was a former first-round pick of the Baltimore Ravens. That didn't work out. He flamed out in Baltimore rather quickly, had a small sample of production in Cleveland on a one-year deal, and then he was pretty productive down the final 5 games of the year last year for Tampa Bay before signing. Now, he got a one-year deal for $8 million, which is $2 million a year, less than what Robbie Anderson is making over the course of the 2 years. Obviously, if you average it out, he's getting $12 million. Robbie Anderson is next year, so it's a $4 million difference. Despite that, I would have preferred Robbie Anderson. He is a better version of what Perriman is, but as you might know, I put out a video yesterday before the news about Robbie Anderson broke. Robbie was my number 1 choice. Perriman's my number 2 choice. So while I'm disappointed that I'm losing out, or the Jets are losing out on Robbie Anderson, who is better, this is not a bad plan B option. He's 26 years old and had a 72.8 Pro Football Focus grade. He had 645 yards and 6 touchdowns last year. But the issue with him is that over 500 yards and 5 of those 6 touchdowns came in the final 5 games of the year. What about the previous 9? It was just 140 yards roughly and 1 touchdown. So if you're basing this off of that he's the receiver that he was in the final 5 games, this is a good signing. He is going to be extremely productive. Or if you get the version in the first half of the year, this is not going to look good. So the Jets still have more work to be done at the wide receiver position that they should address in the draft, either in the first or second round. I think I'm leaning more towards a offensive lineman in the first round and a wide receiver in the second round. I could be convinced into flip-flopping those or trading for Trent Williams. I think there's a few ways you can go about it. But as of this second, Breshad Perriman's their number 1 outside target. He's faster than Robbie Anderson, slightly. His 40 times just slightly better. He is also bigger in terms of weight. He has like 20 or 25 pounds on Robbie. I think that, like I said, I'm going to repeat myself, but I think he is a poor man's version of what Robbie is. So in the grand scheme of things, this isn't atrocious, but if we're going to sit here and say that he's at the same level of Robbie Anderson, that's not really fair either, because he's not. Like I said, nice pivot move from Joe Douglas, but still work to be done at that position. And now today, the Jets signed Patrick Onwuasor from the Baltimore Ravens. He's an interior linebacker, another inside linebacker on the fold. So you have Onwuasor, C.J. Mosley, Avery Williamson, Neville Hewitt, James Burgess, Blake Cashman. That's a lot of guys and a lot of bodies at inside linebacker. So what does this tell me? Well, it was a 1-year deal. We don't have the cap hit or anything else like that out just yet. I don't expect it to be super high, but I would assume this means that Avery Williamson is gone. Just because I don't think you can sit here and allocate that kind of resource at interior linebacker and continue to run out C.J. Mosley and Williamson, who is one of the higher paid interior linebackers. Like, the positional value, hello, like, is that really even a thing? So I think they end up moving on from Williamson. I really do. I like him as a player, but after he was hurt last year and now you bring in Onwuasor, I think this opens the door to move on from Avery Williamson and get that $6 million in cap relief from moving on from him. He is 27 years old, Onwuasor is, and he had a 49.4 Pro Football Focus grade last year, 64 tackles, 3 sacks, but it was a little bit misleading. He's very good against the run. He had 90 tackles just 2 years ago. He wasn't in the rotation as much, and I think when you're pairing him back up with C.J. Mosley, someone that, well, Joe Douglas is familiar with, but someone that obviously Onwuasor is familiar with, I think he's going to go back up and be, at minimum, a okay starter, which is all you really need aside from C.J. Mosley. Mosley's a potential all-pro. You don't need 2 all-pro kind of inside linebackers. It doesn't really, again, I'm going to repeat myself here, it doesn't necessarily make sense to allocate that much resources to that position. So I think Onwuasor is a fine replacement for Williamson. That's where I expect him to be. I think he'll be a starter next to C.J. Mosley. And this is someone who has a little bit of a high ceiling sack wise. He's not too far removed from a 5.5 sack season, so 8.5 sacks in the last 2 years. That's a plus. The Jets don't get after the quarterback well. I don't think you're going to put him on the edge. It doesn't really make sense to put him opposite side of Jordan Jenkins. That's not the position that he plays. He's an inside linebacker. I would still be looking to continue to add at that position, but I mean, this seems like someone that Joe Douglas is really comfortable with and CJ Mosley will be comfortable with. So it makes sense. It's a relatively low-cost swing, another one-year deal, and I'm okay with this move. So the New York Jets, over the last couple of days, they add a wide receiver in Perriman, an inside linebacker in Onwuasor. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of these two signings. I think both are going to play a pretty big role in 2020. I don't know about you, but get at me in the comments or on social media at MattO'Leary NY. Make sure to subscribe here if you're new to the channel, and I'll talk to you next time.